hard to explain to anyone who hasn't experienced extreme narcissistic abuse or been a victim of intentional trauma, ritualistic abuse, targeted by your own mom. It's very hard to explain that to people who don't have the ability to put themselves in your shoes. What's strange, even on top of that, is that in some capacity, people feel so entitled to even an explanation of that. I mean, if you really think about it, nobody should have to give an explanation when they have made a determination as an adult for who is allowed to be in their life and who isn't. I guess even that part for me was hard for me to grasp. And even Nick being able to leverage that was very strange to me. It was very strange to me. And his family, very clear at the extreme efforts that they were going to try to make some kind of narrative fit. I wasn't totally sure why at that point, but the way that my mother was making a full-time job out of trying to stay connected to my daughter, trying to get information out of both my daughter and my son. Even my son at some point told me that he was uncomfortable because grandma was always asking questions about me. How Nick was so confident in continuously violating the parental agreement himself. And even if you did try to express it, at that time, it was very obvious to me, whether they were going to admit it or not, that they had strategized a plan to some degree. I just wasn't sure who all they had involved, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was they thought they were going to accomplish by doing this. Again, though, and this is just the struggle with people who do not understand karma. They don't understand universal law. They don't understand their own behavior. That's what makes every one of these people so dangerous. And at the end of the day, this is what makes them so dangerous, and this is what is going to cause the ultimate judgment upon all of them. And it's already happening right now. Because when you take action like this to destroy someone's life for no actual reason besides your own greed, you might feel empowered in the moment. You might feel good about hurting another person. You might feel like you're going to be successful in something. But what you're not understanding is that you're failing to learn a lesson, and all you are doing is stacking karma on top, on top, on top. You can't create that much of an imbalance ever, anytime, ever. When someone has a purpose in this world, when they have managed to overcome every obstacle in their life, and you involve a whole group of people and then weaponize the justice system, the family court, intentionally attack my stability, my finances, make it impossible for me to even get help. That is the kind of karma nobody should want to call into their life. Nobody. Or they've just held this belief for so long and they've continued to just build off of their ego. So everything that they have attracted to them is just feeding that false belief, feeding that false program. It's like charging up the battery to a cell phone that is using an operating system that's 15 years old, and you just keep trying to use that same operating system, even though your calls are failing. It takes 20 minutes to send a text message. So trying to get them to understand where they don't understand, not just for men, but for everyone, that you were given emotions for a reason. You were given feelings for emotions. You were given feelings for a reason. Everything that is within us as humans, the spirit that God gave to every human, there's a purpose for it. And in order to truly be balanced within your life, you can't deny any part of yourself. You can't have any part of yourself out of balance. You can't have an overly emotional response, but you also can't have no response at all. It all comes down to fear. For most people, though, recognizing the fear is the struggle, but then also identifying where that fear comes from. And that's a part of what I do. That's a part of what I do, and then I help people heal it. And I'm very good at it because I'm in my purpose, and I know where my wisdom comes from. I know the integrity that I put into my work. I know the integrity I even put into my speech and into my content that I make. God allowed me to be into that situation, even though I knew that I was giving my wisdom to some degree without any kind of reciprocation or gratitude or humility. But the only possibility that I could see and that God had put on my spirit for this to even have the hope of going in a positive direction was to continue to be vulnerable and continue to be authentic in my message and share with them what I had gone through, like my personal experience with healing my trauma, just helping people identify with you. So that's what closes the divide. And that's really what the definition of a humanitarian is. It's closing divides within humanity so that everybody can prosper, so that everybody can find peace and joy or find balance, as many people as possible that you can touch or that you can reach with your message. Even in the moments that I was feeling frustration, I wanted these people to understand that I was feeling frustration. It's a different kind of strangeness to know that there's an entire group of people that are actually enjoying the opportunity to witness your suffering. That's, and that didn't make me angry. It still doesn't make me angry. It's hard for me to even talk about that because that makes me extremely sad. It makes me extremely sad. Not only that there would be an entire group of people surrounding me and my children that would be enjoying watching my suffering, but to know that there's an entire group of people that are operating in the shadows, likely masking as good people, at least the people that, were in my reality, like Nick and Shelby and my mother. It's I don't know what you think you're doing if you just totally have no self-awareness, but the way that you are behaving right now is actually out of control. No ability to recognize their own projections, or they were just so committed to their own projections. It's whatever story you've come up with in your head so you don't have to look at yourself, the determination to make it stick to me, and then to continue to try to create scenarios where they could create the appearance that it had stuck to me. So I had to at least make sure at a minimum that I kept making content so that I was DEAD on paper already, which is very possible. Like I said, somebody look me up and let me know. And I thought there was either that, they could have potentially put me in a fraudulent marriage. I thought there was that too. Once I started to investigate a little bit more about my biological father and where he came from, and understanding, because he was a part of the Jester Shriners, if that was the actual Jim Sage that I was able to locate. And then even people connected to my mother, the Rollins family, there was always some strangeness around people that would pass away. I've never received any kind of inheritance or will or anything like that. Even for my own father, I didn't. I don't think the average person ever really even thinks about. It wasn't something that I ever thought about, for sure, until this happened, because then I did have to consider, like, what is their actual motive here? And when I discovered that my biological father passed away in 2019, and this is really when things commenced, you know, most of the warfare that up until this time I really thought was just primarily spiritual warfare. But when you know that people are taking actions that are not just, are not right, are straight up lies or perjury or whatever they're doing, they make it very obvious that it's not spiritual warfare. It's man-made warfare. It's people that are intentionally. And then combined with the black magic and the voodoo and the projections, when you have someone trying to feed you and gaslight you out of your own reality, and they can't even recognize the inappropriateness to their behavior, especially if they claim to assign to a religion, there's no point even having any interaction with them. In this case, it was exceptionally difficult because of the fact that it was clear that there were people that were involved in government agencies that were a part of this and a part of the justice system. Not bringing justice to a person, intentionally not assisting a person. And this is for everybody who works in Medina County at that time, Medina County, or works, you know, at the schools that targeted my children. All of them that made an assumption or that violated the law and my privacy, violated HIPAA laws when you were communicating things that were completely inappropriate to do so, that had a negative effect on both of my children, for Strongsville City Schools and Brunswick City Schools. That is black magic, y'all. That is black magic. That's what they're doing. It's projection onto your children in an attempt for it to have an effect on your life. In this case, it was to support whatever narrative they had come up with, or whatever narrative they chose to just follow behind for whatever reason. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, there's always an ultimate goal. The entire system, the kingdom of darkness, what we are seeing with the fraud and the artificial intelligence, hate crimes, anything that you are seeing in the news, no matter what story is spun around it, it always comes back to money. Money is not the root of all evil. Attachment to money is the root of all evil. Most of these generational curses, the black magic, the voodoo, you know, paganism mixing with Catholicism, you know, the skewing of different ideologies and programs and stuff like that, that goes way, way back. And there could have been a lot of intentionality around that, but even 1,000 years ago, it was all about money and power. And a lot of the time, almost all of the time, when you're being tested by the kingdom of darkness, when you're being tested by evil, if you're ever wondering if people are intentionally doing curses or black magic, it's usually the people closest to you. Always going to be an issue around money. Always. If you look at and follow the money, you will get a lot more answers. As soon as that gets under control within our country, things are going to improve drastically. But when you have people that are intentionally abusing other people financially, targeting their finances intentionally, so that they can receive some kind of desired result from doing that. Whether it's an inheritance, whether it's to steal land, to steal a home, to steal intellectual property, to steal a business, to steal a partner, to steal a car, to be able to build something that they want to build, all about the money. And when you heal, you will also understand this, and I also cannot stress this point enough. The beauty about healing, and I mean truly healing, and nobody can take this away from you. Like, once it's yours, it's yours. Besides just that, as a huge benefit to truly healing, truly doing the work. And healing is, not linear. You do have to go through things, things and circumstances are always going to come up in your life. You're always going to lose people. There's going to be loss, there's ups and downs. The sooner that you recognize those situations as an opportunity for you to learn and learn to embrace every situation with an open heart from a balanced place, that's when you will understand the beauty and even the dips in your life, the struggles in your life. It doesn't make it easy. It's never easy to lose. Nobody knows that more than me. But even in my grief, even in my suffering, even in my loss, I raised a child on my own because her dad couldn't get his addiction under control because he chose to take a drug that took his life. Climbing the mountain of anger and forgiveness, true forgiveness, the deepest form of forgiveness, in order to find so much gratitude for him. I wouldn't have my daughter, but the lessons that I was able to extract from his loss, and even the timing in my life, the way God worked everything out for me, it's like I had to have that lesson of forgiveness. I had to understand spirit and grief and navigating those very dark waters, and I had to do it alone because look at the situation that I was just put in. That's how far ahead God is of all of these people. God is so far ahead of all of these people. Whether they want to acknowledge it or not, they don't have to. It doesn't matter. That's why I even throughout this entire process, when I would make videos, I would tell them, I was like, your belief doesn't matter, right? Like, even if you don't believe in karma, it's not going to prevent you from getting karma. Even if you don't believe in God's wrath or God's judgment, that doesn't mean that you're not going to receive that. And, again, you just hope that people are going to recognize that they're essentially signing up for like their own endings in their life. Again, I never came into agreement with the energy. Like, I never fought back. From the last time that I went to the FBI, when I had that awareness that I was being a witness to what was happening right now, that there was never a more important time in my life to trust my intuition than right now. And so even if it was inconvenient for me, even in the moment, if I wasn't totally pleased with whatever was happening, or I wanted to go do something else, and even if God told me, like, okay, you're not leaving today, like, don't go there, don't do that, and it's like, when that was put on my spirit, it's like, okay, I just got to be patient with it. But the way that these people, it was so extreme. It was so extreme, but it truly was magnificent in the way that, like, every time they would up the ante, they had no awareness that God was upping the ante as well. Around this time, I started to have the awareness that to some degree, these people had infiltrated my DoorDash route. I'm going to give away everything here. But the way that God gave these people up, it really was supernatural. It really was. Even for me, I was like, whoa. I just think a lot of people probably would have access to this if they were not wounded themselves, but if they were more quiet within, if people weren't always in such a rush. But I just think, your intuition is just like any other muscle. I've just had to use mine a whole lot throughout my entire life. So I've gotten very good at it. But most people just don't even listen to their intuition. And, you're not going to be able to hear your intuition if your ego is in the way. God communicates with you is through your intuition. Why they would be doing that? But it became so obvious. I would see certain people. First of all, I was going routinely to the same places. But then I started to recognize a trend with some of the names. And you don't see people's last names on the app. You just see their first names. So I would see their first names. And they had a certain energy around their apartments, around their houses, that became very clear and very obvious to me. It was like my guides were not going to let me miss it at all. They're like, no, you're going to know what this is and you're going to pay attention. And I confirmed it because I started looking up. I started doing a little research into some of the locations that I was going to. And that's when I discovered that they were in fact all connected. There was some influencers trend with some kind of religious organization. And what I also discovered, because it was very clear to me that like these homes were not like totally lived in. You can tell, it's very obvious. People don't think it's that obvious, but especially because I've lived in my community and the surrounding communities quite a bit. People grossly underestimate how much I pay attention, but I will notice things like this. And I noticed that most of them look like they really had not been occupied that long. So I also started looking into this as well. And that's when I discovered that these were just owned homes. These were likely like either Airbnbs or just rentals, and started looking into who the people were. And they were all connected to this same church in Texas. They have some other affiliations, but that isn't a coincidence. I'm in Ohio. I don't know these people. They don't know me. This is getting into like, I want to say maybe like February. Really pick up on some of the locations that I was going to. A very dense energy. That's the best way that I can describe it. And it would almost like hit me as soon as I got there. I knew that I was also being observed. And I wasn't sure how I was being observed, but I just knew that I was being observed. I believe it was through their Ring cameras. Maybe they had CCTV or something like that. I wasn't sure, but I knew I was being observed. And then I started to notice some trends with these like sigils that they would have. Again, because my best friend is a pagan, he's like, I've done some extensive research into this as well. Like I've learned to identify and recognize throughout my whole life, not just now, but throughout my whole life. You just learn to recognize things that are symbolic of something. And so like the rotting pumpkins and candle work, a lot of skulls, like these people would have this actively displayed on the outside of their home, or in some capacity they would have candles actively displayed around their home, like in the windows. I took pictures of all this. I documented this whole entire experience, by the way. So that's probably going to be my next video, where I'm just going to go through with all of the pictures and stuff to really expose these people and call attention to the situation, because this group of people has not taken accountability. A group of people that tried to take my life has not taken accountability. My son is being traumatized daily. My son is in the care of my ex, who is a Satan worshiper who tried to sacrifice me and was unable to do so. I cannot express to you how many times a day I have to breathe through knowing that the family court, who was a part of this, signed an order for a Satan worshiper who tried participating in sacrificing me to have custody of our son, who now is not even letting my son communicate with me. No matter what happens, my main goal is to have my son returned to my care. Yes, his father will have to be held accountable at some point, and they can work all of this out. As soon as anybody actually recognizes that I was pretty severely victimized in this entire situation, even if they don't take accountability, that's why I'm really praying that somebody will receive this that is doing their job in the justice system, like interested in knowing that there are a group of people that are targeting people with really violent and disgusting hate crimes. But in the short term, and most immediately, just want my child returned to me. And, you know, the responses that I would get when I would call DoorDash were very weird. It was not your average level of struggle. It was an intentional effort to make things difficult. You know, like whether the money wouldn't be available to pay for people's groceries if I was doing like grocery shopping for people or whatever. If an order would get canceled or get there, if like leaving negative reviews intentionally, complaints that people didn't get their food. I was taking though extra precautions and measures. Like I was documenting every conversation I had. I wouldn't just take a picture within the app. I would take a picture with my phone. It's like, but that's what they want to do. They want to exhaust you. They want to exhaust you. That's how covert and deviant these people are. That's what you need to understand. That's why people have to learn to look deeper. You have to look deeper. You cannot take anything that these disgusting rodents say at face value. If you're hearing somebody speak, if you're seeing the way that somebody is handling themselves or the way that they're presenting themselves, if it does not feel good in your spirit, if it feels like something's off, that is God trying to communicate with you that something is off. It's your choice to choose not to listen to that. And in this case, it saved my life listening to that. And hopefully it's going to bring justice, not only to myself and my kids, but anybody else these weirdos have done this to. They're probably doing it to other people right now. I mean, this was a strategic, long game. Strategic. And I don't know if they just do this as a part of their network. I mean, I know there's a lot of cults and stuff like that that are about sex magic and energy harvesting and stuff, but this wasn't just energy harvesting. This was energy harvesting to take someone's life based on whatever bullshit narrative they came up with in order to justify what they were doing against myself and my kids. You would have to ask them. Likely it'll be probably because I'm a Christian, I would imagine. That's usually the narrative that they run with. They make it about some kind of religious or political divide, but none of it's real. What it all boils down to is the fact that they're sick and they need help. They need help. And if there are government people that are involved in this, if there are civil servants, they need help also. But their lack of doing anything about it makes them culpable, period. 48 months this has been going on. I mean, again, it could have been going on even longer, but 48 months of me being oppressed, silenced, stolen from, having my platform shut down, stalked, hacked, to an extreme level, followed, everywhere I go. When I started to notice that the trends with whatever weirdo ritual that they were trying to perform, there was definitely some theme of like Christmas lights into like a Halloween theme, but this was like springtime, so everything was based off of whatever like pagan weirdo calendar that they follow for their rituals. But this is what they do. This is when they do their sacrifice to harvest. But it definitely had a very eyes wide shut type theme to it, which would make sense because I already knew that they were doing sex magic on me because there was like men trying to invade my fucking dreams because they're disgusting predators. You're predators. You're nasty and you're filthy, and there's no amount of money that I would ever let any one of you touch me. Ever. I would dip my body into stone before I would let a scumbag, disgusting, vile creature who performs sex magic, who has orgies, who probably sleeps with both men and women. You're probably all disease infested and probably all need to be tested, for sure. Your children, any children connected to these people, are not safe. Mine definitely weren't. And I don't know that my son is. That's why these people need to be dealt with. I've recognized that there was also a connection to the Freemasons. Like I said, I had already come to understand that my biological father, whomever he was likely a Freemason. But then as far as like the people that were following me, I mean, these people weren't even trying to conceal this. And I don't know if they thought that I didn't recognize them, but it would be like the same people. And I would go to different stores into like neighboring cities. It just became very, very obvious. But people just don't understand how easy they are to read. And some of them just give themselves up so easy. But I started to notice like a lot of the symbolism, whether it was a bumper sticker, a tattoo, a ring, they had a lot of symbolism around Freemasonry. Probably the Knights Templar also was another one that was a trend. The amount of black SUVs around me also. At some point I thought maybe they were just sort of silently protecting me. But I quickly realized they really weren't doing that either. Even the cars that were like unmarked, but their license plates gave them away. They were all government license plates. And a lot of them had like the antennas and stuff like that. And I would have issues with my signal or my Bluetooth signal anytime. And they were constantly surrounding me. It's like they knew when I would leave the house. It truly was insane, y'all. It was insane. I cannot believe that this can go on in this country. I had no connection to any of these people. None. Choice that this group of people, who obviously included civil servants and government agents, it was very obvious. But even the people that were like the homeowners to the homes that I was delivering to, that belonged to churches, or influencers that were like trying to like covertly show up on my DoorDash route. It's like, I don't even know. It's sick. It's sick. Like, how do people have this much time on their hands to invest all their energy into a single mom from Northeast Ohio, literally all the way in her lane, like not trying to fight anybody for the spotlight, no addictions, no toxic relationships, no criminal record, like not hurting anyone, just like there is legitimately zero justification other than their own greed. And that's why I say it always comes down to money. Nobody invests this kind of time unless they have some kind of personal benefit. They can claim that it has something to do with religion, politics, with like whatever their little sex ritual is that they do, their little weirdo games that they play. They can blame it on the fact that they think that they're righteous because God told them they could, or maybe they just really want to make people believe they want to break my faith. Just some of the comments that would be specifically around my faith and God, even within like the fake court case at the family court that they did, the derogatory comments that were specific to that made it clear that they definitely did not follow God, even if it said on the website that they were Catholic or they go to a Catholic church. They definitely did not, because their language in a response when I would bring up God or Jesus with these people, that's another giveaway that they don't recognize that they're doing. But their response to that makes it very obvious. Would see or learn, because they either had, again, stickers on their cars, they would have a sign in their front yard, they would have an emblem on their license plate, they would have a jacket laying on the front seat of a car that I walked by and looked at, that there was Jesuits. involved in this, Jesuits, which are a part of the Catholic faith, allegedly. I'm going to include a separate video on this. These people, whatever label they have given, Freemasonry, Knights Templar, Jesuits, Scientology, Latter-day Saints, whatever label they have given within their networks, even to some degree the Jester Shriners. The Jester Shriners just happen to be considered, and especially the order of this Jester Shriners, because it's the Royal Order of Jester Shriners. So these are like the judges, the politicians, the elite that they call themselves. But they're not really elite, because you can't really consider yourself elite if you're stalking a middle-aged single mom, white Christian from Northeast Ohio in your free time. I'd say whatever money you have, that pretty much disqualifies you from calling yourself elite. It definitely disqualifies you from calling yourself a Catholic or a good person. Maybe you don't agree with me, but as soon as you're taken to the court of public opinion where you wanted me, I can pretty much guarantee you that the majority of normal functioning people would also see it that way as well. And you need to see it that way. These people need to see it that way so that they can heal. Thought that that was going to intimidate me more, or that was going to increase the amount of fear that I would feel. Maybe it would create more chaos or confusion for me. I don't know. I don't think like these people. So I can't say exactly whatever their perception of whatever delusional reality that they exist in.